Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman, starring Mark Silverman. You're a certified financial planner professional and the founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates. My name is Ron Stutz, and Mark, it is good to be back with you on the radio today.
Ron, always happy to be here. Hopefully we have another great show for our listeners out there.
We have a lot of interesting things to talk about today, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but I wanted to put your phone number out there so folks can get in touch with you. And let me just give you a little hint. You can go ahead and do this right now. Don't wait until the end of the show because everybody will be doing it then. You can go ahead and call right now and get on the calendar 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. You can call, or you can simply send a text to that number, and you can get on the calendar and come in and have a conversation with Mark face-to-face about your situation. He's also not going to put you off on anybody else. You're going to come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman. No obligation, no cost. Again, that number is 520-333-7601. Go ahead and call or text. Hey, Mark, let's talk about 401ks. That is a big part of our conversation lots of times, and I thought we could address some frequent questions that you get from listeners about their 401ks. First of all, free advice or advice for a very low fee. What's your take on that? And some people offer free advice, and some say, we're going to offer you this advice, but you have to pay us. What's your feeling on that whole thing?
Well, it depends on where that advice is coming from. If they're driven by selling products, that might not be in your best interest. The other thing is you want to know what their experience is and how much questions they're asking as far as your situation. If somebody's giving you advice without asking a lot of questions, I kind of relate it as like a doctor giving you a diagnosis without doing their homework or doing any testing to figure out what's going on, because you have to look at all the different pieces of your financial puzzle before somebody can give you advice. And I know we talk a lot about on here about different things, but we're not giving specific advice. We're talking in generalities, and the only way to give specific advice is really to get to know somebody's situation, because again, everybody's situation is different. So it's important to understand that. So take what you get with a grain of salt. It's like going online and getting information there or in magazines and those sorts of things. I think it's good to have that information, but how it applies to you and how it's going to work in your particular situation, you need to have somebody that's going to take the time again to look at your overall picture.
Well, I should have qualified that a little further and say that, some companies offer free advice or advice for a very low fee to their employees. Does that change the way you answered that question?
Well, let me say this. We get a lot of people that call in. Raytheon's a big employer here, so we have a lot of Raytheon clients and a lot of people that call from Raytheon. It's one of the bigger employees here in Tucson, and they have a company that you can pay. They can pay an additional fee. I think it's a 0.5 point per year for Financial Engines. And Financial Engines basically just puts together an allocation based on their age and when they might be retiring. It's not really advice. It's just putting an allocation together. They do rebalance, and that is important. So if you're not rebalancing, that's an important thing that they do. But is it really what we're doing? No, it's two totally different things. So, 0.5 point is expensive for what they do, but it's better than nothing. So if you aren't going to be, actively rebalancing and repositioning your investments, as you get closer to retirement, et cetera, then it's better than nothing. But I think, if you do have quite a large balance in your 401k, you should probably do a little bit more and be a little more active than doing nothing, certainly, and even more than what Financial Engines does.
We're talking about 401ks and a myriad of questions that folks have about 401ks. How about 401k loans? Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
A lot of people utilize those. The most you can take out is up to $50,000. Here's the problem. If you were to quit your job, let's say you have an outstanding loan and you're basically paying yourself back. So you aren't really growing your account on that loan balance. You're basically paying your interest back to yourself. But let's say you have a balance, and let's say you took out 50 and you've paid it over time, and now you're down to 40,000. Let's say you decide to quit your job, or even worse, you get laid off. That 40,000 is now taxed as ordinary income. So you really need to be careful about those loans. And if you are taking them out, making sure, because things do happen, that you're going to get it paid off, or otherwise that's going to be taxed as ordinary income, which you don't want to happen. So you just have to be careful with them. And I think a lot of people tend to use those a little too much, but you have to be careful of the pitfalls with them.
This is Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. Of course, Mark's on the radio every week from Silverman and Associates, answering all your questions. And certainly the best way to get answers to your questions is to come in and have a conversation. Again, the number to call to make that happen is 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. On today's show, we're talking about 401ks. And how about 401k rollovers, Mark? When does a rollover make sense, and when does it not make sense?
I think they always make sense, but you got to know where you're rolling it over to and what you're going to put it in. We do those all the time for our clients, whether it's an in-service distribution or somebody is leaving a job and they're able to roll their account over. It's very important that you do these sorts of things, because a couple things can happen. One is you're opening your investment choices up from a limited number. Maybe you have 10 or 20 choices in your current plan or your old plan, versus rolling it into a self-directed IRA. Now you can do anything you want with it. You're not just stuck with mutual funds, but you can maybe do exchange-traded funds, individual securities, etc. So I think they always make sense. The question is, what do you do with it? You've got to have a strategy of where you're going to roll it into. And so that's why working with a professional can help you in those sorts of decisions.
Mark, target date funds, are they good options for most people?
I'll spend a second on talking about what target date funds are. Those are the funds that have, a 2020 date fund, or 2025, a 2030. When you see a year in there, that's what those are. I think if you're just starting off, they're okay. They're a fund of funds. So they take a group of mutual funds and put it into another fund. So there's fees on top of fees. With our clients, we tend to build our own strategy. Even if they can't roll their 401k over, we'll put together a strategy for them and use our own, pick the best choices that they have based on their situation, rather than just use a target date fund. So I would say if you're just starting off, they're okay. But once you've accumulated a decent amount of money in there, you're probably better off staying away from those.
Mark, I know you got lots of questions about this. Should you just contribute enough to max out the company match for your 401k, or should you put in more?
You should, at a minimum, put in enough to get the full match, but you should put in more. So the more money you put away, the better off you're going to be. I've never had somebody retire and say, wow, we retired and I have more money than I know what to do with. However, I've seen a lot of people come up short. So the more you can put away, the better off you're going to be. The minimum you should be putting in, though, like you said, Ron, is enough to get the full match. And if you're doing that and your bills are still getting paid, I would bump it up 2%, give it a few months, see how things are going, and bump it up again and keep bumping it up until you can max it out.
Mark, if you have a 401k and it has a Roth option, should you take advantage of it or not?
I would. I think it makes a lot of sense to do a Roth 401k. The benefit being is that money, yes, it's going in after tax, but you can put a lot more into a Roth 401k than you can a traditional Roth. That money's still growing tax deferred. And then the nice thing is when you retire, that money's all tax-free when you come to take it out. So a Roth 401k, is a much better deal in my opinion. So, if you do have that option available, I would seriously look at doing a Roth 401k.
Mark, there are lots of people out there with lots of questions about 401ks. And if they want to come into your office and have a conversation about all this, what do you have to offer them?
Sure. So whether you're a first-time listener to the show, or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP, such as myself, can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone, however, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Go ahead and call or text to that number. You don't even have to talk to anybody today. 520-333-7601. Reach out, make that phone call, or send that text. 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Mark Silverman's office, Silverman and Associates in Tucson. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and there's more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. Mark's on your radio every week here. He is the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates, certified financial planner professional. If you don't know Mark, if you'd like to get to know Mark, then call this number or shoot a text to this number, 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. This show is all about retirement. If you're a regular listener, you know that. If you're new, we welcome you to the show. I think you're going to learn a lot just by listening to the radio show, and certainly more when you come in. 520-333-7601. Mark, let's talk about working with the right advisor. Of course, I would advise everybody to work with you. I think you're the right advisor, but it seems a lot of folks just don't know exactly what they should be getting from their financial advisor. They have different expectations, so it's difficult for them to know if their advisor is actually doing a good job for them. Can you give us some context to set our expectations in the right place for what kind of service that folks should be getting?
Well, I'm going to be a little biased too, Ron. So, it depends on what type of advisor that you're working with and what they're providing. If they're, for example, insurance only license and they're just there to sell you annuity, you shouldn't expect much more than them selling you a product or an annuity, for example. If they're a stockbroker and they're focused just strictly on the investment management, you can probably count on them to sell you some mutual funds, maybe a variable annuity or those sorts of things, but not a lot much more than that. In my opinion, and I've been doing this for 22, 23 years now, I always stress, helping my clients the best possible way because all these different pieces work together. We help our clients in many sorts of ways. Building a financial plan is probably the crux of what we do, and that encompasses, tax planning, the investment management, which is what most advisors focus on, looking at the insurance, all different types, whether it be long-term care, life. We'll even look at health, property and casualty, make sure all those you're properly covered. Even having an umbrella policy makes a lot of sense a lot of times. And even looking at, even things such as estate planning, making sure that your assets are going to be distributed the right possible way for your beneficiaries. Looking at the risk management piece is very, very important. Looking at an income plan. So when you do retire, making sure you have enough income that's going to be increasing, taking in consideration inflation. Also looking at such other things such as, when should you take Social Security? If you have a pension, what's the best way to take that? Do you take it just on your life? If you're married, do you take it for you and your spouse? What percentages, et cetera? Looking at everything, because all these different pieces, like I said, go together. So I think it's important that you look at all the different pieces of the puzzle.
Certainly a lot of things to think about for sure. Are there any warning signs to indicate that you should definitely be looking for a new advisor?
Well, one, if there's no communication, if your advisor is not in regular communication with you, I think that's a problem. both good times and especially bad. And then I think the other thing is going to be if they're just trying to sell you something. If they're there and just trying to sell you a product without doing their homework or truly understanding your situation, I think that could be an issue too. A lot of people call themselves financial advisors, but in reality, they're what they are is financial salespeople.
If you want to find out more about Mark Silverman and Silverman and Associates, go to savingwithsilverman.com. That's the website, savingwithsilverman.com. We're talking about working with the right advisor. And Mark, there are cases where an advisor has done a great job over the years, but at some point, their specialty is no longer a fit for the client. Give us an example of when that might apply.
Well, maybe you started working with an advisor and you got started early in your career, and now that you're moving closer into retirement and they don't have a lot of expertise in retirement planning as far as, building financial plans for people, helping with the decisions kind of like we just discussed, regarding Social Security or pensions or the healthcare component as far as like long-term care, asset protection, the risk analysis, all these different pieces that go together. Maybe they don't have a lot of experience in that and they're really focused again on, just recommending this mutual fund or that mutual fund. Maybe it's time to get another opinion.
Mark, what are some of the things that could go wrong when someone sticks with a wrong advisor for too long?
I guess the biggest problem would be running out of money or not being allocated properly or having too much risk in the portfolio when somebody's not actively, in communication with you and making those changes to the portfolio as your situations and your needs change. So it's important that you make sure that at the end of the day, yes, if you have an advisor, that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, like I said, what's really important is it's your money. You need to be responsible to make sure you're doing the best job you can for you and your family.
Let's just consider the fact that there's someone out there listening to this show right now. And my question to you is, how can this person determine if the prospective advisor that they're interviewing, or they might come in and see you, has a philosophy and approach that's a good fit for them?
Well, if they're not answering your questions appropriately, if you don't feel like you're getting the answers that you're looking for, if they're kind of skidding around your questions, I think that's a problem. The other part is if you don't feel comfortable, if your gut's telling you that this maybe isn't a good fit, go seek another opinion. Because this is a relationship business. Luckily, I'm in a position where I only bring on clients and work with clients that we can mutually benefit, that we're on the same page. Whereas some other advisors, unfortunately, have to take in everything that they can get. And sometimes they bring on the wrong type of clients. It's a relationship business, like I said. So a relationship's got to go both ways. So if there's not regular communication or you don't feel like you're on the same page, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, a lot of it's all about chemistry, that's for sure. And Mark, there's someone out there right now thinking about reaching out and making that phone call or sending that text. What do you have to offer that person?
Well, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So if you're a do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to me with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone, however, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Here's your number to call or text, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. That'll put you through to Silverman and Associates in Tucson, serving folks from all over southern Arizona. Again, that number is 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner professional, founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. He and I will be right back after this quick timeout.
Mark Silverman is a Tucson native, and his firm is right here in town. That means he's always accessible to you. Start your relationship with Mark and his team today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark, and Mark can be reached at 520-333-7601. You can call or text 520-333-7601. If you're just joining us for the show, this show is all about retirement, making sure that you can retire comfortably and you don't ever have to lie awake at night worrying if you're going to outlive your money. 520-333-7601. That's Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates. Time to go to the quest line, and we have some great questions from our listeners every week. First of all, Jerry in Green Valley. Jerry says, I love how much my retirement accounts have grown the last couple of years, but I'm starting to wonder, when do I need to walk away from the metaphorical craps table?
Well, Jerry, that's a great question. And, hopefully the investing is not considered a crap table. If you're investing, it's different than speculating. And hopefully you put all of your money into Bitcoin or one of those cryptocurrencies. But, what you really need to do, I don't know if you're doing it yourself or you're working with someone. I don't know if you're retired or still working. Those sorts of things do matter. What you probably want to do is have somebody do a risk analysis and understand how much risk, how much downside you have in your portfolio versus how much risk you're willing to take in relation to where you are, if you're, like I said, already retired or still working. So, we have a process that we follow where we have a tool that we can use where we find a risk score for you, and then we can actually plug in your current accounts without moving assets and show you exactly how much risk you're taking versus how much risk you want to be taking. And about 80% of the time right now that we're doing this exercise, we find people are taking a lot more risk than they thought they were taking. And we can actually back test it and show you that if we did have another financial crisis, which is not what we experienced in February, but like 2008, for example, how much you would stand to lose. And so that might be something you may want to look at and really just understand how much risk you're taking and versus how much risk you should be taking based on your goals and objectives.
Well, Jerry, follow up with a phone call. We'll give you that number again in just a few minutes here, but thanks very much for the question. We have our next question today from Marshall in Saddlebrook, and Marshall says, I have a variable annuity, and I just found out that the fees are really high. I'd like to move the money someplace else, but I'd have to pay a penalty to take it out. Is it worth the penalty to get away from these high fees?
Well, Marshall, it just depends. Each policy is a little bit different. And unfortunately, variable annuities, I'm not particularly a fan of them, but they do have the highest. They're one of the most expensive products you can buy. The average fees on those all in around 2.5% to 4% per year. Typically what I find is advisors that sell these, which are typically your stockbrokers and banks that usually sell these expensive products, don't fully disclose all the fees, or I'll tell people, you're going to be paying 4% in fees per year, because if they did, most people wouldn't buy them. Sometimes there's ways to get out of them. Sometimes there isn't. It just depends. You also need to consider tax considerations. So depending on how much you put in versus what it's worth, those are some other considerations you might need. We're happy to do a policy review on it and take a look at it and see what the penalties would be if there are still surrender charges, what are the expenses, and do an analysis on it and see what tax considerations as well. But before you do anything, you want to make sure you talk to somebody, not the person that sold it to you. Unfortunately, they're not going to be too objective, but talk to somebody that knows what they're doing that can analyze it for you.
Okay, one more question today from Vale, and Samantha lives there. Samantha has, I think, a good problem, really. Unless something goes horribly wrong, we should be leaving a significant amount of money to our kids. But I can't decide if we should tell them about our plans now or just let it be a surprise to them. I'm certain that they have no idea what our net worth is like. What's your advice?
Well, yeah, Samantha, that's a great question. I think depending on what the ages are of your children, if you have an estate plan, if you've done like a living trust, those sorts of things, you should have at least somebody that knows what's going on, whether that's all of your children or one of your children. Somebody needs to know what's going on. I think makes a lot of sense, and you probably want to pick them, obviously, the most responsible one. But you don't want to leave a lot of this stuff up in the air as far as who knows what. I do understand the conversation that you don't want them to think that they're going to be getting a bunch of money and looking at it that way. But by the same token, you want to make sure that one of them is somebody's going to be aware of what's going on, so they can kind of lead the others to make sure that your plans are carried out correctly. So, it is important to educate them. And it also is an opportunity, too, to teach them, how to save and be financially responsible, too. So you can look at it that way as well. But it's a great question. Certainly we've had this conversation with a lot of our clients and even some of our clients' children, where with their permission, they'll even bring some of their kids into the office, and we'll have those conversations with them to help get them started building their own, financial independence and getting them started that way.
Mark, 3 really good questions today from Jerry, Marshall, and Samantha. I know that we have listeners out there who have questions of their own, and they would like to come in and have a conversation with you face to face. What's going to happen when they walk through your door?
Sure, Ron. Well, we've had some really great questions. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to write those questions in. If anybody has a question they want to submit, you can just go to our website, which is savingwithsilverman.com. You go to the media tab and radio, and then there's a place to submit your question, and maybe you'll get to hear it here on the air. So now's my chance to ask you a question. So here's a simple question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I mean, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? I'm going to repeat. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and risk and income and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews, but hopefully it's more frequently than that? Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601, or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Maybe you've been listening for a while and you've been procrastinating. Don't put it off any longer. 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Call or text. Again, that's 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Wherever you are in southern Arizona, go ahead and reach out and make that happen. Mark Silverman, of course, certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. I'm Ron Stutz. Hey, Mark, it's been fun being on the radio with you today.
It's been another great week. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen.
Join us again next week for the next edition of Saving with Silverman.
Silverman and Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.